You know, past me left me in this room with the idea that I would explore this next session, but I don't remember what building this is. Wait, this isn't the... Wait, this isn't how I got in here? This is a... Wait. Clicky? I can't rub my face in these doors to leave this way. Wait, how did I get in here? Wait. It's like a puzzle. Alright, we need to solve this from my past. How did I get in here? I just loaded my save and I was here. And I was like, I'll figure it out. That's one of my strategies, is I point myself in a particular direction to remember where I was going. But I actually can't get back out to check, well, like, outside what the front door says. Is this how I got in here? Too much beer, too many burgers. No way my fat butt's squeezing in there, Bubba. Are you fucking with me, Boots? Was this supposed to be a small vent? In, like, the script phase? You could practically walk in there. In fact, yes, you can. You basically don't even have to crouch to just walk in here at full height. He doesn't have to crouch, and he especially doesn't have to crouch. Alright, it's fine. We'll just figure it out. In media res. We're just in this place, and we don't know how we got here, and it's exciting. Welcome to the Center Station Theoretical Science Museum. Science Data Center. I actually don't seem to be able to use this. Oh, here we go. You have to click on the keyboard. That makes sense. Museum hours. 10 to 8, Monday through Friday, closed on Sundays. Founders. TSM was founded in 2697 by two individuals with sight and vision. Wow, that's incredible. They had eyes and also eyes. Riften Caligus and Shigra Bin. Riften Caligus, head of the Caligus Industries and inventor of the first linguinator. Dr. Caligus was known in many circles as Dr. Unbabel, for the breaking down of the language barrier between the galactic races. Isn't the Tower of Babel supposed to have, like, created all of the languages or something, and it's like the reason why we can't understand each other? Something like that? That's why he'd be the Unbabel. Shagra Bin, founder of the first colony on Sunder and one of the galaxy's leading theoretical physicists. Shagra's goal was to reach the masses with the latest advances in science. With her dream realized, she promptly disappeared and we never heard from her again. But her legacy lives on. TSM database. No? No exhibits? TSM is proud to show off some of the most shocking, amazing inventions of the past few hundred years. Anti-gravity ring. Far beyond common minor field repulsion, the grand Tanta experiment tragedy on Democritus is shielded in secrecy. Yet a city floats in the sky, a true example of the actual large-scale anti-gravity. Oop, fuck. Mouse wheels don't work. Oh, they do work here. What? Well, the nature of... Was this the right place? Yeah. Internal dampening. While the nature of Torzuski radiation shields is well known, the problem of internal dampening was thought to be unsolvable. No one thought that the Garbin Physisco, who invented it as a solution for a railgun-based amusement park ride. Oh, no one told that to Physisco. This is the tone of that. It's like they thought this was impossible, but no one thought to tell this guy, so he went and did it anyway. Phototachyon transceiver. As far as by far the oldest piece in the collection, the first instantaneous radio was a landmark of science, though impractical for large-scale commercial communication beyond the system level. Tachyon decay detector. This revolutionary and radical device could detect the negative age of particles, i.e. how far in the future was their origin point. See next month's display, Mystech Mayhem, for the story of how the inventor, R. Bowman, ventured off into questionable science after this invention. Come and join us for the wonder. Benefactors. These fuckers. Oh yeah, you have to click inside the box to start scrolling. Okay. It doesn't like automatically become the thing that's in focus. Yep. How do you decide how many A's are in that name? Alright, so we're in the museum. He can't know. He won't know. You promise? I promise. Where is he? At the hotel. Does he suspect? Why would he? He can never know. He can never know. He will never know. Do you love me? Hey, do you mind? Bruh? Bro? Chodski? The fuck out of my face. We're planning like a murder or something. Or... Oh, I know it's an affair. I've still never used this, have I? Oh, I know I used it once on... to get that taco. Oh, fuck. I forgot what this was like. You have to squint so close to see... Okay, just straight up. This is really awkward to control. It's so small on the screen, and I have to get so close to the screen to try to tell which one of these have shitty grids. Okay. TSM database? Download? Unbelievable botany. Mathematic cogitation. Alien archaeology. Staggering statistics. Computational conundrums. Scientific organized chaos theory. Your chemistry cruise. Geology. More than neat rocks. That one was for me.
Hey, I downloaded the entire science database. I got the scientific credentials and I'm smarter than you now.
Well, that's good. I guess you're the protagonist now. Have fun. I'm a weird robot that looks like he's smoking a cigarette all the time, but I think that's a laser. I can't tell. I bet there's ducks laid to the museum. Too bad it's work hours. Does time pass in this game? I'm confused. If I wait long, like if I can proceed in the story, will it be later and then I can go in there when it's not work hours? I'm not all that sure what to do when I'm faced with like an issue of what time of day it is. This kind of looks like a high school science project. Is that noise foam everywhere? I guess they put noise foam in each exhibit because you would talk. If you are talking, you're probably talking towards the exhibits and it like dampens the room's noise floor. The Grand Vision, floating in air. Long renowned for their impressive technological achievements, the inhabitants of Democritus once had the grand vision to construct magnificent twin cities floating above the clouds, above their homeworld. Whether they were motivated by the noblest of intentions or just plain hubris remains uncertain, yet no one can deny that their remarkable efforts eventually made Tantasil a reality. Until they finished it, was it tantalating? I was going to zoom in on my character's face, but they turned invisible. Whoever's running this museum should think of filling the walls with antique weapons. That always brings in the crowds. What you need is a series of Japanese katanas. People love that. The disaster. The Tachyon transceiver on display is by far the oldest piece in the museum's collection, dating back to the early part of the 3rd millennium AD. Its origin is directly linked to the tragic story of the Endeavor, a science vessel on a 5-year exploratory mission destined to end in calamity. These are the voyages of the star. 3 years into the ill-fated mission, the Endeavor was knocked off course by a passing meteor shower. Many of the ship's onboard systems were damaged as a result, including most of its navigation equipment. Unable to enact repairs or rectify their flight path, the damaged vessel sent a distress signal back to Earth while spiraling helplessly along their new course. Earth scientists were horrified when their projections estimated that the Endeavor's altered course now placed it directly in the path of a super-congested asteroid field and certain death. Scrambling to find a means by which to alert the Endeavor's crew of the impending danger, the greatest scientific minds of the planet transmitted a radio message to the doomed vessel with detailed instructions outlining how to realign the ship's trajectory. But by the time the message arrived, it was too late. The Endeavor had already plowed prow first into one of the giant asteroids. There were no survivors. It's like The Martian, where everyone brings together, everyone comes together in a time of great calamity and emergency, and they're like, "It's okay. We'll bring together the might of all of humanity to save them." And then they do all the work and they transmit the data, and it's too late. Whoops. Matt Damon's dead. Wait, Tachyon part. Can I click on every? It keeps going. I guess it doesn't matter where you click. The distance problem. After the tragedy that befell the Endeavor, the scientific community struggled to come up with a more efficient and immediate means of subspace communication. Up until then, radio waves had been perfectly suited for communications over interstellar distances, but as the incident with the Endeavor had so graphically illustrated, radio waves were extremely limited by their capacity to travel only as fast as the speed of light. Despite scientists' best efforts, the distance problem appeared insurmountable. The solution. It wasn't until 20 years later that a determined physics engineer named Jaref Rezeo came up with the ingenious idea of bonding a radio wave signal to photachyons. They're tachyon particles. To photachyons, essentially piggybacking on the signal onto pre-existing photachyon particles already speeding through hyperspace. Though impractical for large-scale commercial communication beyond the system, the device, which came to be known as the photachyon transceiver, proved to be very effective, making it the first instantaneous subspace radio in existence. As it turns out, it was later discovered that the first working photachyon transceiver prototype had already been invented by a young child genius in Madison, Wisconsin, USA, Earth, Sol, about 100 years earlier. That's a bummer. Like they already had the information they could have done to save them. Shit. Now I've already so it's like looping dialogue without a clearly labeled origin point. No, it was tachyon particles, right? Yeah. So when I come back to here, I'll go back to tachyon particles, but this one has more than probably. Floating in air. Far beyond the capabilities of common minor field repulsion, the anti-gravity technology employed by Democratans on the two rings encircling the planet was modified for the great Tantasil experiment. It was a daunting task, made far worse by the fact that the project would involve the constant levitation of an incredibly large mass, thereby exceeding the requirements of simply stabilizing a balanced system. Never before had a feat been attempted, or at least certainly not to such a grand scale. Despite such a massive undertaking, Democritus was up to the challenge. Before long, Tantasil was finally completed, with catastrophic results. Wait, this one doesn't loop. Fuck. They made this part really difficult to navigate and tell what's going on with it. Photachyon transceiver. So the plaque has its own label. But I tried to click on the device originally, and it clicked through it on the background. And this one is 3 separate descriptions that happen in order. But this one isn't. Was this the one I did first? Yeah, I made it a reality. That's floating in air. That's the disaster. Since Democratans have long favored an extreme isolationist policy which precludes any free exchange of information, little is known about the events leading up to the Tantasil disaster, apart from the tidbits gleaned by the few journalists who were allowed to cover it. Disappointingly, what is known about the cataclysm amounts to nothing more than reported sightings of a huge chunk of Tantasil suddenly dropping out of the skies for no apparent reason. Rare eyewitnesses' accounts describe how Tantasil heaved and buckled without warning, then split in two with a sickening retch, as a little over half its bulk plummeted from the skies like so much dead weight. Like, it just kind of fell apart. We don't know why. Many believe that it was an uneven distribution of mass that forced an incredible amount of torque to be centered on the juncture between the two halves of the twin cities. This resulted in the formation of an irreparable stress fracture, which in turn caused the fatal shift in floating island's center of gravity that led to Tantasil's ultimate destruction. Regardless of idle speculation, it appears that the exact nature of the circumstances surrounding Tantasil tragedy is bound to remain shrouded in mystery. In another context, I'd be like, is this just like a random info dump that doesn't come up again, just trying to add more to the world or something? But, they keep mentioning the Democratans, so I think we're gonna meet the Democratans more significantly. It might even be one of the next locations after being here. Anti-gravity ring. What? Ah. That's horrifying. Could you imagine how fucking morbid it would be to like walk into like a museum and see like an animatronic like version of like 9/11 just happening? Like that's an entire city that collapsed and presumably everyone died. It was a huge disaster. I don't know. I guess like enough time passes and people are cool with it or something. Like I definitely have seen a bunch of models over time of like the Titanic and how it like the exact system of like how it collapsed and broke in half and like tilted upward and then sank and all these other like steps in the process. Like people are like hyper aware of it, and I think there are like exhibits that kind of show that to some extent. So like, but yeah, like it's still like it's really morbid when you're thinking of the number of people that died in the process and so on. Like you just walk into a museum and it's like, here's a little animatronic planes, here they come, and it's like, this is, I don't know. I wasn't ready for this thing to be like a fucking like tragedy or like replay, we're at like a just depressing version of Chuck E. Cheese. I didn't read this before, did I? Oh no, I clicked on it. I didn't read it. Then I was worried that I'd started the loop, but then the loop only is sometimes in case because each exhibit is read differently via the interface. It's weird. Tachyon particles. Simply put, tachyons are particles that are constantly moving faster than the speed of light, as opposed to tardyons, which can't surpass the speed of light. Tardyons, because they're late. And luxons, which can travel only on this at the speed of light. Back in time. The concept of time travel has been around for centuries, most notably as the subject of countless science fiction stories. Unfortunately, there is no practical way to travel into the past, and the sheer physics involved in such a venture have relegated time travel to the ranks of imaginary science. Nevertheless, a small yet vocal group of scientists insist that traveling through time will indeed be quite possible someday, and they believe that the key to unlocking the mysteries of time may very well be found in the study of tachyon particles. The theory. Till recently, tachyon particles had only been detected in controlled lab experiments and never in nature, so their rumored existence remained strictly theoretical. All that changed when Dr. Roe Bowman proposed the construction of a revolutionary device capable of isolating a tachyon particle and pinpointing its exact position in space and time. One of the more amazing things about the tachyon decay detector is that it isn't limited to just detecting artificially created tachyons. The device can also trace the negative age of pre-existing tachyon particles and determine the point of origin in the future from which it was first formed. Detector Bowman earned great acclaim with her invention. Unfortunately, her more recent theories regarding the nature of mistech have been mired in controversy. Once revered for her brilliant analytical mind, Bowman has suffered a severe fall from grace in the minds of her peers. In fact, her radical and rather unorthodox methods have made her somewhat of a pariah in certain social circles. So it is with great trepidation that scientists from different parts of the galaxy accept Bowman's finding as scientific fact. Still, the empirical data collected thus far cannot be so easily discounted, though the device will require further study in order for us to grasp at a greater understanding of the behavior of objects in relation to space-time. For better or worse, the natural existence of tachyon particles can no longer be refuted. And this in itself may turn out to be a monumental first step towards unraveling secrets behind time travel. This one doesn't seem to do anything. I think we're setting up there being time travel in the storyline of this game. We'll see. It's like a device and everything. Is someone gonna tell me to like go steal it or something? Maybe, because there's a vent that I can take to get in here at night. Coming soon. I can't... my mouse disappears behind the curtain. That's weird. So I can't click on the sign to read it. Coming soon... Mystech Mayhem. I think coming soon is in Comic Sans, but I'm not sure. It's obviously very low. Yeah. Yeah, I can't see anything there. It's a beautiful work of art. The fact that it actually does something useful is amazing. Hermano. I'm happy I can understand people now. With internal dampening. 40 years after Austin's death, a young inventor named... Austin's death. What order do I read these in? Traveling through cinders. Without internal dampening. That's probably the starting point then, if the other one is with. It was the... without internal dampening. It was the year 2229 AD. That an unsuspecting Earth astronaut first came upon a sender. Honing in on the signal being transmitted by one of the spikes on the mysterious sphere's surface, pilot Lee Austin, RIP apparently, must have been startled to suddenly find his ship rocketing towards the sender. The small spacecraft was then thrust inside a hyperspace tunnel and catapulted out into a different section of space, all the way on the other side of the galaxy. Unfortunately for Austin, his ship was not equipped to withstand such powerful inertial forces, and though his battered vessel made it through the history-making journey relatively unscathed, Austin himself did not survive the trip. All that remained of the pilot was a glowing mass of unidentifiable fleshy pulp. Aw, Austin. Travel through senders. Sitting in space-like silent sentinels from a... Oh, not space-like. Sitting in space... Like silent sentinels from a forgotten time, senders are huge reflective spheres that were systematically placed throughout the universe by parties as yet unknown. So many sci-fi things always deal with this idea, don't they? You get to space and you're not the first one there, but whoever was is just gone, but they have weird shit around that enables a bunch of... On one hand, it's like a way of hand-waving some really impossible science, like how do we get around in space? I don't know, some dead civilization left stuff around that lets us do that for free. Oh. Okay, but it also can set up some horror aspects, or at least that's what I like about Mass Effect is the idea that the both Mass Effect and Halo kind of deal with the idea that like this precursor race has some villainous aspects to them. In fact, some more explicitly than others. Equipped with long spikes protruding out at regular intervals over its slick surface, each sender possesses the means by which to travel from one end of the galaxy to the other. According to Old Earth calendar, the first sender was to be found by Earthlings was discovered near Pluto around 2229 AD, 50 years before humans made contact with a race of aliens known as the Gorians. This first encounter with extraterrestrial life forever altered humanity's future, ushering forth a series of horrible wars. Alright, went just as well as it did with the Turians. This was followed by an age of peace and prosperity during which the senders became hubs of lucrative trade and galactic civilization. The largest sender ever discovered is located at the very center of the universe, dubbed Sender 1, the Citadel. It acts as a relay station connecting all the other senders to each other. I'm really wondering, like, does this game have a particular source material, or did the people that made Mass Effect play this game? I'm kind of inclined to think it's the first one. I don't know if this game necessarily influenced Mass Effect so much, as much like there might just be a bunch of sci-fi that I haven't read, probably an Asimov novel or something that might fill all this in. I want to, by the way, but holy crap. I looked at the Isaac Asimov collection and I'm like, oh, fuck, he was prolific. Because I was considering picking them up. They are the most garish fucking paperbacks, by the way. That they look like fucking YA, like Animorphs fucking... Animorphs is not YA, but like it looks like Animorphs books. Like when I looked at the Asimov collection online, the go-to one that has like every single book he's made or whatever, it's like the most like brightly colored, weirdly 90s, not great to look at books. And I'm like, ugh, I don't love this. But no, I do need to read up on more of my sci-fi to figure out where some of the stuff's coming from sometimes. The Dyson spheres and so on. But I'm definitely picking up on similarities between this and the Citadel, all the way down to like you have the mass relays that warp you through all of space in Mass Effect, and once they activated a mass relay and encountered the Turians, there was a big war, and then at the core of all this is the Citadel, or Sender 1, Citadel, same number of syllables even, which I've lost the thread a little bit. Is Anachronox in Sender 1? I don't remember where Anachronox is anymore. But the Citadel moves. Like the Citadel in Mass Effect has a bunch of pieces that move around, despite being places that people live on. It has those big wings that can close or open. And in our case, the Anachronox like shifts around and whatnot. I'm just definitely noticing a lot of parallels, and I'm just curious if it's because oftentimes when stuff has a lot of parallels, it's because they are all drawing from the same source. Like when a bunch of different things draw from Norse mythology or the Bible, which is another blind spot for me. Like one of these days, maybe I'll fucking go through the reading that whole thing. Maybe I'll find a nice like modern translation that makes it readable, because the older stuff it's so unreadable. And it doesn't have a lot of value to me on like a belief level, but like context and like details are handy to have, just to know all the stories and so on, instead of just hearing about Job over and over and over and over. Apparently it's a really popular story. Job always bothered me. With internal dampening, 40 years after Austin's death, a young inventor named Gabin Fizisco came up with a solution to the internal dampening problem for a railgun-based amusement park ride that he had been commissioned to design. His efforts were remarkably successful. 8 years later, a breakthrough in the development of Torzewski radiation decycling shields made it possible for Fizisco's inertial dampening technology to be able to hyperspace travel. After several manned expeditions confirmed the safety of the procedures, travel through sender spikes quickly became the standard mode of traveling vast distances across the galaxy, and it remains so to this day. Inertial dampening. I keep saying internal dampening. Is it not acronym? Whatever you call it when you can rearrange the letters. Anagram? Because sometimes that might be why I'm reading it that way. It's almost an acronym. You have to replace the I with an N, and then you get internal. There's a second I and then no I in internal. It reminds me of that, it was like a meme on forums for a while or whatever that they'd post around like this paragraph where the gimmick was that every single word, the first and last letter, were in the correct places, but everything in between was shuffled, and despite that you could read the whole thing, surprisingly. And it kind of explains a lot of the misreads that happen sometimes with me and Andrew and Effie and so on in like Final Fantasy XIV and other places, or anywhere you just do a lot of reading, is that your brain kind of fast forwards through and like can interpret words without actually checking what order all the letters in the middle of the word are in. But unfortunately there are words that are nearly the same word as each other, so you can end up saying the wrong one, like internal instead of inertial, and things like that. Let's watch an inertial dampener in action. This experiment is similar in construction to Garbin Fizisco's original amusement park ride, now only legal on Hephaestus. When you press the button, the mechanical arms flings the iron ball into the air. but it doesn't fly away. Instead, its inertia is all gobbled up by the antipolarity-inducing intraneutrino chromatomagneto-dissonance-producing inertial dampening field. The iron ball then falls harmlessly back into place. Press the button for a demonstration. Oh, the button works? Oh, it went. Boop. How do I want to look at it. I can't see it. Is it just firing on a timer? Do I click on it? Oh, there we go. Yeah, so it goes there and falls. I feel like the animator made a mistake, though. It's not that the inertia stops. It looks like it just catches it. Because, like, look at the ball. It goes past the ring and then goes back. My mouse was kind of in the way that time. But, like, it doesn't just stop in the ring. No, fuck. I think it doesn't. It's hard to click on it and make it start cleanly without accidentally activating something else. Yeah, see, it goes past the ring, then goes back. So it doesn't quite make sense. If it was eating the inertia, I think it would essentially just, like, slow down until it stopped, and then it would fall down, I guess. But it goes past the ring, then goes back, which means that it then has inertia in the opposite direction. So it has like a positive velocity in the opposite direction for a bit, which I don't think that makes sense necessarily. But I don't know. I'm not a physicist. I did excellent in my physics classes in both high school and college. I took that stuff really well. It's part of why I wanted to get a major in a physical science degree, is that once I realized I didn't want to go down computers anymore, I remember that physical science was just what I always took to really well, and physics in particular, but I didn't think I really wanted to be a physicist necessarily. But on the entry level, the physics classes were always a good time. I feel like I can't just, like, fucking drop that bomb and move on when I was talking about, like, having an issue with the story of Job, so maybe we'll dive into this a little bit. So in Norse mythology, this is not where Job is from, but this is context, the gods are petty little shits. Like, they are just a bunch of shits. They suck so bad. See, growing up in modern society, the way that religion is usually framed is that it's like a morality tale. Like, there is a particular deity that wants you to behave a particular way, and you get punished if you don't do it, and you get rewarded if you do it, or so on and so forth. And also, as a result, said deity is framed as, like, the arbiter of what is right and wrong, and that means that they themselves are, of course, a paragon of rightness, and they are, like, just fucking fantastic moral beings and so on, which is always really, like, that's always a really flawed premise to start with, because it's always, like, from my perspective, like, they're fictional characters written by men, and they're written, and worse, they're written by men from thousands of years ago, so their morality is completely fucked. So the particular moral code that religions tend to propose as the right way to live are usually incredibly damaging and worrying in a lot of cases, and sometimes in really overt ways and sometimes in really insidious ways. And so, like, in my head, that's my exposure to, like, whenever someone talks about God, like the Christian God and things like that, is that it's supposed to be, like, the right way to live, and, like, they're an almighty, all-powerful being, but also, like, they're not supposed to be, like, a tyrant. They're supposed to be, like, a benevolent, loving thing that loves you and wants the best for you or whatever. And so anything that bad that happens to you is supposed to be, like, a test that helps you grow, and, like, this kind of, like, hopeful messages and so on that make you kind of get why people would want to believe these kinds of things. But then I read Norse mythology. I took the class. I actually took a class in Norse mythology in college, and so read through Snorri Sturluson's version of the stories back then. Then played God of War, like, last year or whatever, and so in parallel I bought the Norse mythology book as done by Neil Gaiman, which is essentially another take on those stories, but also like kind of modernized with like modern language and maybe a few tweaks here and there to have some through line with the characters' personalities and just kind of update the writing in a more narrative sort of way. So I've read 2 different versions of that at this point and done a class on it and taken tests on it and everything, but you know, memories fade and all that. But one story that constantly stands out to me about them being little petty shits is that, like, sure, everything Loki does, you can pretty much like throw out the window, because like Loki is a shit and that's like his character. And on some level, like, maybe you can throw out the window anything that Thor does, because like okay, it's Thor's thing is that he is a headstrong, self-righteous, selfish, like powerful thing that kills people, and he seeks power, and he kind of just wants stuff that person would just want, and that's the whole point, and that's it. So he's kind of selfish. But Odin is like supposed to be super wise, and like he's the closest analog I think we have to like the usual interpretation of like what a god would be. Your Zeus's and your god, capital G god, and so on like that. Also Zeus is known for just being like a real shit too, for that matter. When you get older, it's when you get to older mythologies and religions, usually the stories are often a lot less charitable, perhaps because of the fact that they're out of vogue now, or perhaps because they never really had the pretense in the first place of them being like benevolent deities or anything like that. But Odin is supposed to be the wisest of all. He drank from the magic pool that made him incredibly super ultra wise, and he's infinitely wise and all of it, and he has premonitions of disasters and all these other shit. There's a random story where he's going down the street essentially, and there's like a bunch of farmers, hardworking farmers, these poor guys, and like they just have hard lives and they're working all the time, and Odin is like, oh yeah, you want this super scythe that'll basically, it'll be like you're slicing through air, because it'll be such a good scythe that like, man, it'll just like trivialize your entire job and give you a better life and so on. And naturally all the farmers are like, yeah, that would be nice, please. And so he's like, oh shit, all these different farmers, all of you poor guys seem to all want this scythe. How weird. It's acting like this is unreasonable somehow. Also, just to make this worse, I think they were all slaves. I don't think they were like profiting farmers that like owned the farm. I think they were all slaves, which makes it worse, because they were like I think they were being forced to toil against their will by slavers, and so like anything that makes their life easier would be a godsend at that point. So Odin's thing is, he's like, all right, well, I'm gonna throw it, and whoever catches it, they're the one that gets to have the scythe. And so he goes into like the middle of the circle of all these slaves, and he throws the scythe up, and they all try to catch it, because obviously they're desperate for anything that can improve their horrible lives. And it slices all of their throats, which unclear on the mechanics of how that worked out exactly, but it somehow kills every single one of them. And then the story ends. That's the story. Odin just kills a bunch of slaves for daring to want an easier life from their slavery. It's like it's like the punch. It's like an anti-joke. Like when you're familiar with like a knock-knock joke, or like how comedy works or whatnot. Like you're like, okay, here's the setup, and here's the punchline, and here's like the subversion of expectations and so on, and like that's how jokes work. And it's like, and an anti-joke is when you just say a fucking nothing thing at the end, and it doesn't resolve anything, it doesn't contradict anything, it doesn't surprise you, it just nothing happens, and like the anti-joke is that. This is like the anti-joke of religion like stories, because you're so used to the idea of like when you hear about Adam and Eve or something, like there's some kind of like morality tale built into like the aspect of what's going on there, and so they're often fraught with like issues, especially the older the stories get, where you're like, but at least you kind of get at least what the point was, at least once upon a time, what they were going for with the morality. But this one's real hard to untangle. And so it just feels like, oh, shit. That we're gonna get like a lesson in like caring or selfishness or coveting things or something, and like maybe you can kind of twist it that way eventually if you try really hard, but like it really seems like Odin just got bored and murdered a bunch of people by tricking them into trying to catch something that would kill them, like seemingly by magic. Like you can almost see a different version of the story where like one of them catches it, but then one of the other brothers one of the other slaves like murders them, and then like they all like in a big bloody battle, they all kill each other for the scythe, and they're all mortally wounded, and no one gets to have the scythe, and then they all die. And then it's like, okay, this is like the tragedy of the commons or something like that, where like there's one resource and everyone greedily wants it, and in their greed they destroy themselves and the resource. And it's like, okay, but that's not really what the mechanics of how the scene plays out. It really is just like Odin throws up a magic scythe and it slices everybody's throats, and I'm like, why? Also, you're like a god. You could have just given them all the cool scythes so they could have better slave lives, you dick. Instead of that, you clearly knew it was going to happen, apparently. So this seems like a really dumb, bad move on your part. And also, they can't learn a lesson because they're all dead. So like, it's just Odin fucking with people. It's not really out of place when you read all the Norse stories, because you're like, oh, every single Norse god is pretty much just a selfish dick that just does whatever they feel like and casually kills anyone that gets in their way. And the morality of every character is completely fraught and destroyed. And there's only like, I think like Baldur and Tyr might have been the only two upstanding dudes, basically. It's like those two and the guy that was made of spit knowledge. That he was made of spit, and of all the gods, that he had infinite knowledge, and he got cooked into a mead. It's really hard to... It's really hard to say what happens in these stories without sounding insane, but that's what happened. He's made of the spit of all the gods, and then he knew everything, and then somebody cooked him into a mead that would make you know things. And then Odin stole it back, and then when he's being pursued in eagle form, he shat in the face of the thing that was pursuing him. Oh, Norse mythology is entertaining, if nothing else. It might be the most entertaining version of all these different things you can go through. Anyway, the story of Job seems to be the most popular, at least as an outsider. It often feels like it's like one of the most popular Christian stories. It's pretty much like the crucifixion, Adam and Eve, and then like the story of Job, because it just comes up so goddamn much that I feel like I know it in detail at this point, even though I've never actually read it or tried to pursue it in any way. In fact, I think it already came up again like yesterday and maybe the day before in separate contexts, because it just keeps coming up over and over again. In this one, the devil, or one of God's counselor angels, depending on which version you're going through or whatever, it's like, that guy only loves you, God, because he's got it so good. If you fucked up his life, he wouldn't love you anymore. And God's like, nuh-uh. And he takes old Job's shit away, and he burns down his house and kills all of his cattle and murders his family and just covers him in boils and just keeps fucking him up. Just torturing this poor man who didn't do anything, just a test that he would still love God and praise God even after everything's taken from him. And then, lo and behold, Job, being such a goddamn saint apparently, still praises God despite having basically no reason to at that point, and just getting fucked for no reason. And then God was like, yeah, there you go, see, take that, the devil, or whoever is in this is the other person in the story, because it changes based on who tells it. Told you so. And then he gives like Job like a nice family and a house and stuff again, and he goes on happy in his merry way. A different family, by the way, which is distressing because the first family is still dead, and I assume he loved his wife and kids. But in this version, he gets the wife and kids are replaced by a new wife and kids that were not the same one as the old one, which I guess might speak to old gender roles and how like perhaps the marriage and family was basically seen as just like the property of the man. So much like how the cattle was just being replaced by new cattle, you just replace the old family with new family, because apparently the man only cares about having his legacy continue and having his seed and whatnot and having someone to fuck and so on. That's like just owning a wife and kids as the man seems to be more important than who those wife and kids are, because they're apparently replaced by a new wife and kids, and that's apparently supposed to be okay and not a distressing horror, which is its own other bag of worms, but we'll drop that for now or for good. But like the thing about this story is that it's supposed to be about something about faith, or something about how like you're supposed to hold on to your faith even through tough times and so on. And that this idea, it's like the suggestion of when people always talk about like God has a plan and so on. Like Job, like there was an end point to all this. It was all a test and so on. Yeah, but it was a test for like no reason. Like it was God settling a bet. He's a petty shit in this story. Like he is the pettiest little shit, and he's just settling a bet at the cost of human lives just cuz. Like there's no higher plan here. This isn't like Job going through this test leads to the world being a better place at the end, or any other kind of version of that. He's just fucking with this people because even though he's supposed to be the top of the totem pole of all of things, and also maybe created all of the other people and devils and angels himself in the first place, he's so fucking petty that one of them challenging his authority is in a manipulative way is enough to make him do something, because he's so insecure he has to like prove himself right. And it's sort of like, oh wow, what a belief. I mean, it makes God a more if you're just talking in word terms of like fiction and not like a religion you're supposed to like believe in and pledge yourself to and think that God is great and all that. You're like, okay, this makes God a more well-rounded and interesting character in my like TV show or whatever. But when it's like when it's supposed to be like the paragon of all virtue or whatever the fuck, you're like, he's all powerful and he abuses that power because somebody like challenges his authority and masculinity in like a sneering way, and he's like, no, see, I'll prove you wrong. And then like a fucking insecure child, he like tortures somebody just to settle a bet with somebody who, let's be honest, may have not been particularly honest in their intentions to begin with, and was probably disingenuously just fucking with God to begin with because they're like the devil or not, who knows. I just like, it makes it really, every time I've had multiple people try to explain the story to me, and every single time I'm like, fucking what? This is, and you took this as, oh, okay. It's like, I guess when you're in like the religious bubble of like everyone buying into the stuff and just assuming all these stories are like good and signs of the good and so on, then you just don't necessarily ever question it. Because when I question these things, the answers don't really come. If anything, people get frustrated and mad that I'm questioning it at all, because I'm making them like question a thing that they like just haven't questioned, and that people recoil from that in like a somewhat like they're being directly attacked and so on, which is rough and not necessarily my goal in the first place. But they're trying to explain this thing to me, and they're the one bringing up religion and whatnot towards me. But I'm just like, I'm just taking what you're presenting to me at face value, and I'm like, I don't think that this like is the positive story that it's being framed as. I'm not sure. I don't know. Some people just take at face value, this thing is good, that thing is bad, and they don't question the details in front of them and so on. It's like when you have somebody who like Star Wars fans that still think that the Jedi are like an uncompromised positive force, and there's no pernicious, distressing aspects to how they ran things or so on. And it's like, no, yeah, the Jedi are great, and they didn't bring about their own downfall by being scum lords or anything. And anyway, this is a long tangent. Some people are here for that stuff, some people aren't, but I stood perfectly still, so it was very easy for you to skip ahead and get past that if you wanted to. You have all the power, so if you leave a comment complaining it, you're just gonna embarrass yourself. So Hello.
I think that's a data link for maintenance and diagnostic bots.
Yes. Right. Pal? That's your port. Would you like to use it, Mr. Bot? Or are you saying that I need to get a maintenance and diagnostics upgrade first? Let me just leave shit down here? Ba-doop-ba-doop. I've been in like a tangent mood this weekend. I had some in Kentucky Route Zero and stuff. Sometimes you just gotta stop dead in your tracks and do the tangent and explore it. Because if you try to do the commentary while playing the game, then it's just you're just gonna get interrupted at every corner, and then you're either frustrate people by never finishing the thought, or frustrate them by having it like get started and stopped 12 times as you proceed forward. I think we're done with the Mystech Museum. I think we're gonna proceed in the story, and at some point we're gonna find out that like I need to steal probably this, and then I probably steal it by coming in through the vent. Can I find the vent like in the ceiling somewhere? Is it behind that maybe? Maybe I'll hear about like the new thing that's coming soon. Is like because it's a Mystech thing, so maybe the Mystech thing that's coming soon will be like what I'm supposed to steal later. Okay, this is like a legit problem though, like how do I... Oh, that's the door. I didn't see it because it really faintly says enter right there. I thought these were sliding doors. I was like, where does it open? Where does it open? I missed the one spot that is the door. Oh. We've pretty much looped around. Let's see if I've missed any of these people yet. Otherwise we'll go to the red light district. Achoo! Whoa, sorry about sneezing in your face like that. Wear a mask. It's the custom of our people to greet strangers with a sneeze. It lubricates the ocular and symbolizes brotherly love. That's horrifying. Well, why would you say sorry then? I see you're uncomfortable with our customs, excuse me. I think this guy's fucking with me. Because, like, why would you sneeze in somebody's face, then apologize, then say that it's all a part of, like, your customs? You surely would have recognized that I'm not one of you with the eyeball people and not done it. Or you would, like... Or if you're, like, blind to the fact that that's a weird thing to do, you would have, like, sneezed in my face and be like, what? No, that's just one of our customs. Oh, shit. Like, you wouldn't know to apologize immediately. They want to go to Moonburger and get good gush. If Jefferson wants to wheel a deal, he'd better Hancock before the Money brothers scoop up the slack. 52 on the spin end. He's in for more if you can blue book the property by Moonover. 60 blow, pay or play. We know Jefferson's got dime to boot, so the deal's dead if he's gonna play dead. We ran the numbers past the slicer. It's spin end or we walk with the dime. Jefferson's heavy hitter and he won't have the wool pulled, certainly not by you. Fine, we can blue book the ante, but only if he's willing to goose us on the back end deal. Oh, snuff the dunce dance. You know Jefferson's in a Moonover pinch, and he's balls tall for a spin end. You want to close this deal or cry home to daddy? Come on, man, word's tight that your boy's in tailspin and he ain't breaking wind unless he lands properly before we go quarter. So stop making big and pay the 60. 60 blue book by Moonover, buck or walk. Buck. But tell him he's playing piano with broken fingers. Pleasure doing business. I'm hungry. Let's get a taco. It's like all this hard talk back and forth where they just fucking confusingly jargon scream at each other about making a deal, and then they're just like, fuck, I'm hungry. Durr. Oh, damn. Unfortunate. I'm insulted. I've been with the company 5 years. I've asked to come to the conference for the last 2. They finally scrounge up enough money to send me, and they put me in the Sendormatory of all places. Aren't I worth the deluxe Palladial suites? Aren't I a valuable employee? Well, aren't I? You think I'm expendable? I don't feel expendable. Most people don't feel expendable. Fortunately, there is no ethical consumption under capitalism. So have fun with the expendability. This is Jack Daniels guy. So we've done the full loop. This place is a ring. And doesn't have a huge number of follow-up directions for me to check in right now, necessarily. Let's see about finding the red light district. Have I already been in here? These don't open. I think it was right here. No. Here? Pumping station access 7. Let's do explore. It looks not great down here. Is that another one of these? Yeah. There's so many bug spots. Looking industrial around here. The upper root tubes. Hey, bug. I'm Trader Bot Rollo. Yeah, it's the usual. Dude, this is an aesthetic difference. The moment you're underground even a little bit, it looks completely different. Look more like scientists. Great, get the brain bouncer. Let's see. I'm supposed to go to the red light district. Sleep Eye. We're gonna take that to the guy at the bar. I think he said it was to the left in here. I don't know. We'll have to get a feel for the layout of this place. I'm sure this guy wants to fight us. But why, sir? I have such a larger party now. Oh, you're first, huh? Oh, out of range. Who's a melee character? Bunch of damage on the double-tailed squid man. Fill it up. Yeah. Staff sweep. Kata. Kata. How's this go? I have no idea how much damage that did because the camera lost its fucking mind. Oh, it killed him. But what does it do? I'm gonna have to Google these abilities, right? But like, this is an old-ass game, so I don't even know if there is like a database for this information. But like, what does Staff Sweep do? Is it better than normal attack? Does it multi-target? Does it do a status effect? Usually the non-normal attacks have like a status effect, and that's why they're worth using. As far as I can tell, no part of the interface explains what abilities do, unless I'm missing it somehow. And that seems like a weird choice. Ready for some more fucking pipe dream? Safe, 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 safe. Okay. You have to squint real hard. Keep in mind that I'm playing this game in windowed mode in the middle of my screen, so I really have to like squint to tell which grids aren't broken. I'm stretching it out to 1080p for the videos, which probably helps. It's one of those things where like people like when they're watching me play Myst, they're like, why is he having trouble reading the cursive? The low-resolution cursive from a 1992 game that's stretched across a 16:9 monitor, but then fixed in editing to look like the correct aspect ratio in the video. I can't imagine how he's having trouble reading this weird, scrawly, shitty, blurry cursive that's stretched into weird direction. It looks perfectly fine in the video I'm watching, where he's already fixed it for us to make it better for us. It's like me fixing the video makes me look dumber. It's like, great. You're welcome.